I'm stronger. I'm smarter. I'm better looking. And I got a bigger dick.
A couple of years ago, I did a video on Dante from Ninja Theory's reboot of Devil May Cry and why I thought he was a poorly written character. But now that the dust is settled, it's only fair that I take a look at what many people consider to be an even worse incarnation of a classic character from the franchise. DmC Devil May Cry's version of Vergil.
Rewind a bit, who are you again?
My name is Vergil. I established the Order to help find a way to fight the demons.
Besides swords and bullets, you mean?
Such weapons can win battles, but not the war.
When you boil things down, they might have changed Dante's backstory, personality, and appearance, but at the end of the day, he's still a protagonist trying to save the world like the original Dante, even if he's doing it in the most cynical way possible. With Vergil, they completely uprooted his character and managed to make one of the most awkward and strangely executed villains I can think of. Unlike the character he's based on, this Vergil doesn't begin the game as a villain really. Instead, he's the leader of an underground group of freedom fighters known as the Order, who are rebelling against the demons who rule over their world in secret. Basically, he's the leader of Anonymous, rising up to take on Fox News and the corrupt government, which is the type of in-your-face social commentary you should get used to seeing in this game. The world is ruled by the Demon King Mundus, yes Mundus, not Mundus like in the original, who takes the form of a fat bald businessman as if this was the Super Mario Bros. Movie for some reason and controls the world through debt. Vergil is the brains of the operation, and throughout the game he's portrayed as just that, a guy with a mighty intellect and capable of taking on Mundus by force. For that, he needs the help of his twin brother Dante, who's been wasting away in a trailer in the middle of an amusement park because why not? Both brothers had their memories erased when they were children so they wouldn't know their origins, but in actuality, both Vergil and Dante are the sons of the demon Sparta and the angel Eva. That's right, in this game they're half angel and half demon, completely scrapping the message of the original series which was expressed through Dante's humanity. Humans have something demons don't? Nah, screw that, they're what the game calls nephilim now. Humans are weak, and they need guys double dipping in 2 superpowered gene pools to protect them just because the game arbitrarily decided only their kind can defeat a demon king.
Because according to legend, the only beings that can slay a demon king are nephilim, a hybrid of angel and demon. Those hybrids now exist, you and I.
The rest of their backstory is pretty much the same. Their parents form a forbidden love only for it to be shattered by Mundus, leaving the children on their own with weapons and amulets left to them as keepsakes. Dante gets the rebellion while Vergil gets the Yamato.
The Yamato for Vergil.
The only real difference is that Sparta is still alive somewhere being tortured for eternity and looking like a total chump at the same time. Together, the two of them team up to take on Mundus's forces little by little until they can eventually get to Mundus himself. Vergil is counting on Dante to get things done while he just sits back and tells him what to do. That's really all Vergil does throughout the entire game. Gone are the days of Vergil's incredible displays of skill and hard-as-nails boss fights. Now he just paces around rooms and makes intense faces at the camera while telling you what level you need to play next. Even though Vergil is always toting around his sword, he never actually uses it until the very end of the game, making you question whether he even knows how to use it. You start to wonder if he just thought it looked cool with the fedora he originally wore, which they actually ended up removing in the definitive edition re-release of the game because I guess someone at Ninja Theory developed self-awareness. There's this scene where Vergil is cornered behind a force field by a simple enemy you defeat dozens of times throughout the game while he attempts to delete sensitive data off his organization's database, clearly demonstrating that it isn't Vergil's physical abilities but his cognitive abilities that make him a force to be reckoned with, or at least that's what the game is saying. There's really nothing about Vergil that necessarily portrays him as being intelligent outside of vague movie hacking skills. They basically boiled the characters of the original Dante and Vergil down to dumb brute and elite hacker, when originally Vergil was the one crushing Dante in combat at the beginning of Devil May Cry 3. He was what motivated you to get better at the game, and you always wanted to advance through the tower just to get another shot at fighting him. Now he's just really boring, aside from the scenes when he decides to flip the switch just for the hell of it. One moment he'll be a happy caring guy having a good old time saving the world with his buddies, but then he'll do a 180 and have no regard for strategic thinking or his allies who are the only reason he's gotten this far. I saved this girl Cat from her foster parents who were secretly demons. But whatever, she can die for all I care. Actually, I'm mad that she thinks Dante is cooler than me or something. I guess I'm even more evil now for killing an evil version of her in my mind even though I already didn't give a fuck before. I guess he's consistent in one aspect, and that's how he's a huge asshole. There's a scene near the end of the game where they kidnap Mundus's mistress Lilith, who is pregnant with his child, so they can gain leverage and convince Mundus to give back Cat in exchange for her. Mundus agrees and is really fair about the whole thing, but then in the middle of the transaction, Vergil decides that the best thing he can do is shoot Lilith straight through the guts, killing the baby and then shooting her in the head too. His excuse?
The hell did you do that for? I had there too.
When you're making even Dante's eyes widen, you know you're doing something awful. Sure, the original Vergil didn't like using guns, but look at how fast this dude's pulling off headshots on these police officers. They actually added a new scene into the definitive edition of the game to try to justify this moment because it was so poorly executed. It doesn't add anything to the game, Dante just sort of half-heartedly says causing Mundus to destroy the city, killing thousands of people sure wasn't cool, but Vergil just says it was for the greater good and they drop it. You know, stopping a villain doesn't really mean much when you resort to the same lows as them. A climactic scene between the demon antagonist and the hero of the story shouldn't start out with the villain asking this.
Why did you kill my child?
And their justification shouldn't be this.
I gotta tell you, killing your child like that, watching it explode into little wet chunks, hearing you scream like one of you little demon bitches, priceless.
Yeah, he was just trying to anger Mundus on purpose, but it just goes to show how contemptible these protagonists are. This leads to Vergil closing off the source of Mundus's power and then teleporting behind him to stab him in the back. Yeah, he can just teleport now, even though he's never done anything like that before.
Leave my brother alone.
Actually, from this point on, Vergil pulls a ton of abilities out of his ass. It's like they wrote most of the game and then decided to go play Devil May Cry 3 to see what the character was supposed to be like, so they quickly threw in a bunch of abilities the original Vergil had right at the end in an attempt to seem faithful. Oh, you mean he can actually do things like throw summon swords around and teleport? Let's just have those play a role at the very end. It's not like they could have come in handy multiple times in the game. These guys are doing a great job at saving humanity. I mean, this is the second time they've caused the same city to be destroyed. Hey guys, thanks for pissing off Mundus so we could all get sucked up and crushed to death in his giant concrete golem form. I've gotta say, quite the step down from the giant marble statue filled with molten hands and eyeballs. What precedes is a really lame boss fight against Mundus, which is barely even worth mentioning. Then the game just awkwardly wraps up with the two of them chuckling together over saving the world. And you know, I use save the world very loosely. Oh yeah, I'm sure these defenseless people are all really grateful you decided to bring demons into the same world as them so they could all instantly be murdered. Oh, okay, there are some helicopters aimlessly flying around, that means everyone is safe. Apparently this is supposed to be a heartwarming ending, until Vergil reveals he's just sort of evil, I guess.
Path is clear for us to rule.
This is such a forced conflict. The two go from close allies to bitter enemies just because Vergil even suggested that they rule the world. Then, just like that, they're hellbent on killing each other. Really guys, this isn't that big of a deal. You two could just sit down and have a reasonable discussion about all of this.
Stay out of this!
I think the weirdest part of this whole twist is that Vergil isn't even trying to be a dick by saying this. He is legitimately surprised that the other two characters aren't on board with this idea. He wasn't secretly hiding this plan, he just assumed they were cool with it. The expertly crafted ending of Devil May Cry 3, where the two brothers clash over their ideologies and heritage on the edge of our world and hell, is replaced with, "Oh, I didn't tell you, I'm evil, lol." But is he really even that evil?
You mean like Mundus?
No. We'll be nothing like Mundus. We'll respect our subjects, not enslave them.
Vergil wants to rule over the world because he thinks humanity is too weak to do it themselves. He doesn't want to dominate mankind just because he's more powerful and they can't stop him. He sees it as his responsibility to protect them from themselves given his power. Compare that to the original Vergil, whose relentless pursuit of power led him to view anything that wasn't powerful as worthless. He'd grow a giant tower out of the ground in the middle of a city and unleash demons throughout it without a second thought because he didn't care about the fates of what he saw to be ants. I'm not saying I agree with this Vergil's plans at all, but this isn't something they need to immediately start murdering each other over, especially when this is a world that's been under mind control for thousands of years. How would Vergil even go about ruling the world? Would he just run around with a megaphone telling everyone they better not kill each other? This whole situation is just dumb. Everything I've talked about regarding Vergil's role in the story really comes together at the end to make this a sudden and awkwardly executed final fight. Vergil didn't do anything throughout the game aside from shooting some magical swords a few times 30 minutes earlier. Yet we're supposed to believe Vergil is skilled enough to go toe-to-toe with Dante in combat. The entire point of getting Dante was to have him do the dirty work that Vergil and Cat couldn't do on their own. Why didn't Vergil just do all of these crazy missions by himself instead of getting Dante involved if he was so capable? Then he could have just ruled the world without Dante even knowing anything had happened. This just calls this contrived twist of miscommunication into question even more. If Vergil really believed the other characters wouldn't have a problem with ruling the world after Mundus, why did he never mention it? And if he did think they'd have a problem with it, then why get Dante involved or tell him at all? I'm sure there was an easier way to ease this guy into seeing it your way. I mean, he just sort of believes and does whatever he's told. As for the actual fight itself, this is the only scene in the game that's directly comparable to a scene from the original series, and it really puts into perspective how much better Devil May Cry 3 was as a game. He performs a lot of the same moves as the original Vergil, but they're all way slower and lack the impact that Devil May Cry 3 had, even on turbo mode, which is what you're seeing. They just randomly decided that Doppelganger, one of the styles from Devil May Cry 3, should be Vergil's Devil Trigger ability, which really takes away from the rival aspect of the character and the thrill of fighting someone who was your equal. The fight ends with Dante driving his sword straight through Vergil's chest, ready to kill him then and there. But Cat gets him to stop, so Vergil runs off feeling betrayed and Dante claims that the world is under his protection. What does that even mean? If Vergil popped back up in Australia with his megaphone trying to take over the world, would Dante just have to get on a plane and fly over there to stop him? They're just two dumbasses with a few magical weapons. These characters just don't have the capabilities to achieve the things they say they're going to. They just say these things because they sound like generic goals for a hero and a villain, but in this context, with these characters in this world, it just doesn't sound possible. It's like this game's world is just this city and nothing more. From here, Vergil's story is continued in the downloadable campaign called Vergil's Downfall, which is made up of a handful of missions that detail his mental journey towards becoming a villain. He is super bummed out about being betrayed by Dante, so he goes through this metaphysical plane of existence in his own head where he murders all of the characters in the game, including Cat, Dante, his own mother, then himself. Because this is probably never getting a sequel, I like to imagine this is actually happening in the game's world. I do like the interactions between Vergil and Dante in here though, because for once Dante is just being silly.
Oh, I hate public transport.
I guess I do feel bad for Vergil, but only because the state his character is in is so contrived and melodramatic. Oh man, we had a slight misunderstanding, so now I have to descend into madness and become a villain, and you're all dead to me because I murdered you in my mind. The way the characters are portrayed here are meant to give us some insight into what he thinks the other characters thought of him. So he thinks that Cat liked Dante more than him, he thinks Dante thought he was better than him, and he thinks his mom loved Dante more than him. I never really got the impression that he was so self-conscious about everyone's opinions of him in the main game. But I mean, they've gotta have some reason for him to turn evil so they can have a crazy villain in the sequel. It all ends with Vergil fighting an even eviler version of himself in front of his own giant black heart. This is so dumb, but whatever, you kill yourself and that's the secret ingredient to turning into whatever the hell this is. Seriously, this is such a stupid design, I don't even know what to say about it. He looks like a sadistic mime that's been tarred and feathered. Could you really imagine a sequel to this game featuring this guy as the main antagonist? It would most likely be a recreation of the events of Devil May Cry 3, but instead of this guy, we'd get this guy. I almost want this to happen just to see how ridiculous it would be. After becoming this monstrosity, Vergil wakes back up in the real world, but he's so evil now that all the demons from around the area come to serve him. And that's it, Vergil walks off with his new army of demons, heading off to the sequel that will probably never come. So yeah, that was DmC Devil May Cry's rendition of Vergil. I'm kind of amazed I talked this much about a character with such little going on for him. Simultaneously boring and sporadic, this Vergil manages to suck all of the charisma and charm out of the original and instead leaves you annoyed with his constant smug platitudes. They tried so hard to make the character faithful to the original while also trying to be clever about it, but it doesn't work out, and instead we get an awkward character that just sort of stumbles into becoming evil all over a weak twist that the characters take way more seriously than any normal person would. They tried to modernize his character by turning him into an elite hacker, they tried to inject some political commentary into him by turning him into the leader of Anonymous, and they tried to make him deep and complex by making him do morally questionable things and turn on his allies at the end of the game. But all of this pales in comparison to the simple yet expertly executed rival that was the original Vergil. Really, the most interesting thing about him is that he's vaguely based on this iconic character, and if he wasn't, I wouldn't be sitting here telling you about how lame he is. And I've done that long enough, so thanks for watching and see you all later.